Welcome to the New England and New York Real Estate Journal podcast. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. My guest today is Sarah Travers, CEO at Workbar. And Workbar builds quality workspaces with a focus on member wellness and productivity, with 8 locations in the greater Boston area. Hello, Sarah. How are you today?
Hi, Rick. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. Now, tell us a little bit about Workbar. It's not a place where you go to work and sit at a bar and drink all day, right?
No, it is not. That has been an obstacle we've had to overcome when people come in sometimes. But
I do think that would be a good concept, though.
It is a good concept. Well, the concept of Workbar was sort of blending work and life, which is where sort of the work and bar combine and come together. So. But Workbar is sort of what you said. It's a regional network of co-working spaces here in Greater Boston that has a focus on creating a productive, happy, and healthy workday experience. So we have 8 locations here, and our members go to different locations on a daily, weekly basis to be productive, get out of their house, avoid commuting down to their headquarters. And it's just a nice place to come in and have a nice day at work.
Now, did you come up with this idea, or was this something that was already in place?
So
that you just took it to another level?
Well, so I have been in this industry for over about 20 years. So I did not come up with the concept. I worked for the sort of global behemoth in the industry, IWG, for about 15 years, starting back in about 2001. And from there, after, again, I spent 15 years there. I left there to work for a technology startup company. And then I landed here at Workbar about 4 years ago. And Workbar has been around for over 10 years. So Workbar was founded back in 2009 with its first location on South Street in downtown Boston. So we've iterated on the idea. It's taken 10 years to sort of perfect the model that exists today. So it's certainly changed over the past decade, but the concepts and the values are still relatively the same. Thinking about the history of Workbar 10 years ago, our members were really considered early adapters. They were startup renegades, they were makers, they were founders. And one of the things that they had in common was that their companies all had questionable life cycles. And today, I think everybody can agree that co-working is more mainstream. There are a lot of very large, valuable companies that are in the co-working industry. There are low barriers to entry in general. Anybody with access to space can rent it out on flexible terms and call themselves a co-working provider. I think there are different products on the market that attract different types of users, but the concept has certainly been around for quite a while at this point.
Yeah, no, I talked to quite a few people, and a lot of people, especially younger people, have families,
Mm-hmm.
young families, and since the pandemic, they've had to move their workspace to their home. And
Yes.
It's been very trying for a lot of them because with young kids in the home, running around and the dog being there, and
Yeah.
So has this been something that you being a mom and
Yes.
having a family, is this
Yep.
a trend that you think is going to just keep growing because people just can't, young people can't do this from home, with all the distractions?
No. You just hit on a point that is so close to my heart because I am a mom. I have 2 young kids. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And me working from home it's not a great solution, even if the kids are in school, thankfully at this point. It's just not a great solution. So our product is positioned to attract the next generation of early adopters, not the ones that just want sort of that glass office in a maze on a floor with 1,000 other companies. We're trying to make Workbar a destination where people they don't need to go, because a lot of people can work from home, like you just said, but they want to go and they need to get out of their house. They don't need to get out of their house, I personally don't think, for 40 hours a week. I think that there is something to be said about balancing life and work and having sort of that quality of life. So I think a day or two at home a week is not a bad thing. You don't commute, you get up, you walk over to your computer and you sort of just productively start typing away and start working. But I do think that that people need to get away for at least 40 hours a month. I think that's sort of into a work bar. And I think that's sort of what the sweet spot is. And I think, going back to your question, I think probably the most impactful trend for 2022 is going to be providing a workplace where people actually want to be when they choose to be. And so it's all about choice. It's all about choice and enabling today's workers to choose when, how, and where they work. And Workbar having this sort of regional network of spaces is important to capitalize on that trend. And so we sort of have that real estate in place to give people the locations that they need. And, I'm at I live in Hingham, but I'm at Workbar Needham today because I have a meeting here this afternoon with somebody who lives in Wellesley. And this is the closest location to that person's home. So this is the location where we're going to meet. Tomorrow I have it on my schedule to go out to Burlington because that's where the colleague that I'm meeting with, that's closest to that person's home. And then next week, I'll probably go downtown to some of our locations in Boston and Cambridge because maybe I want to sort of go to a networking event. Maybe I want to go out to dinner in Boston. So it's all about choosing sort of, you have your agenda for the day. You wake up that morning and you're like, hey, I'm going to go to Workbar Needham. I'm going to go to Workbar Boston. I'm going to go to Workbar Norwood. It's just all about sort of setting your agenda today and making it as purpose driven as you can make it. Because if I have that option, why wouldn't I use it?
All right. So you're talking about co-working, the trends that you see that are happening right now.
Yes.
And also in 2022, it sounds like you're seeing this as as much more of a necessity for a lot of people because the pandemic probably has changed the way people think of office work, I would think.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Like you were just saying, traveling to Burlington or Needham to see clients that way,
right.
It gives that, like everyone loves Zoom.
Well,
they used to love Zoom.
But, we all have a love-hate relationship with Zoom, I think, at this point.
But everyone wants that time that they have that they can meet with a client once in a while.
Right.
And if you have one location, it makes it difficult because someone from New Hampshire doesn't want to drive to the Cape, to meet.
100%.
So you have to find a happy medium.
So find that middle ground, and find a place that's productive, that has an oversupply of collaborative rooms, has oversupply of meeting rooms, has next generation technology where, if half of the people in a meeting are in person and half of the people are on Zoom and it's virtual, make sure that the place where you're going to meet has sort of that next generation technology that makes it sort of a level playing field for everybody in that room. I think that's important too. And people want to be healthy and they want to be happy. Workbar spaces are well certified. We're not sort of backing into this wellness trend. It's been something that's been part of our company values for quite a few years at this point. So we're very focused on the health and well-being of the people that work out of our space, and just making sure that when they're in our space, they're as productive, as productive, healthy, and happy as possible.
So give me a little idea of how a space would look, because you're going into the space, and each space is in a different area, but you might need certain tools when you're working. You're not going to pack up your computers and your printers and whatever else you might need to.
Right. So our physical layout of each of our spaces is pretty unique and certainly what I consider to be a major differentiator among the co-working operators out in the universe today. And they really, our spaces consist of primarily open space that is designed around these activity-based neighborhoods. So one neighborhood is phone friendly. One neighborhood is we call it the study, and it's like working out of a library, even down to sort of book art and wood paneling. We have a neighborhood that's geared towards team collaboration. We have a cafe neighborhood that's kind of like working out of a Starbucks. It has music, it has, soft seating, it's phone friendly, it's got great coffee, water, tea, all that kind of good stuff. And then our space also has an oversupply of phone rooms where people can jump in and make phone calls. There's an oversupply of meeting and collaboration rooms, depending on, again, if you're meeting with a group of 5 to 6 people, or if you're meeting with 2 people and then 2 people are online. We have a lot of sort of that next generation technology to facilitate that sort of frictionless technology solutions that you want. You don't want to walk into a room and sort of, especially if you've never been there before, not know how to do a Zoom call, not know how to get on the internet, not have the tools that you need. So our locations really provide everything that somebody would need to have a very productive day at work, no matter where they are. And so, so these spaces are all very intentionally well designed for individuals to come in and have their best day of work.
So as a member of Workbar, would they get a certain telephone number? So if someone want to call the office, or do they just use their cell phones when they're there?
They primarily use their cell phones. We find that our members are very mobile and are, because they're in different locations, because they're in different work environments on a daily basis, they don't normally have a hard telephone line that goes right to, whether it's a physical office or a front desk. Our members are much more mobile than that. We actually, during the pandemic, we rolled out a workplace mobility program where companies can offer their employees these all access passes to work where and when they want, whether, again, that's sort of to meet with teams because we have these great team environments, or to just get out of the house a couple of days a week because, like me, you have young kids. And even if the kids aren't home, in the back of my head, there's laundry, there's, picking up, there's certain things that I can do that around the house that are going to make me a less productive employee. So I want to get out of the house and do some heads down work. And we've found that some of the largest companies in Massachusetts, with sort of these enviable downtown Boston headquarters, they rolled out this program to their workers, really just to empower them to choose, the different type of space depending on what their agenda is for the day. And these companies have been able to use the data that we're providing them to anticipate needs and make strategic decisions based on whether it's their real estate needs, whether it's on, opening up an office out in the suburbs as opposed to downtown, whether it's, their employees want to come in 5 days a week, they want to come in 2 days a week, just how people are working today and, what we consider is the future of work, which is today.
So on a membership, is there a term for a membership?
No, they're flexible. Yeah. So our memberships
so they can do a 3
flexible.
month, or they could do a year. Oh,
they could do it on demand. They can decide one day that they just want to come into work from a Workbar, or their kid is homesick and they want to use a meeting room. They can just go online and do it on demand that day.
Oh, bingo. So that's a great tool.
Right? Yeah, especially in these times that we're living in today. If you have an important meeting that you were anticipating taking from home, but all of a sudden your kid's quarantining for whatever reason, you can just go online and find a Workbar that's closest to your home and just book it on demand and come in that day. Most of our members, when they they take a membership plan with us and then they end up staying forever, but they're all really on monthly terms. There's no sort of long-term commitment.
So I'm just from our little conversation here, I'm thinking this is a great little tool for startups.
It is,
or just people that want to work at home and have that time away. But you have something unique. You have a Workbar, which you launched as a small business grant.
Oh, our small business grant, yes. So
What's that about? And what kind of companies
yeah.
are winners of that?
Yeah, so I love this question. So thank you for asking it. So, as a company that operates exclusively here in Massachusetts, and as a company that still considers itself part of the startup community, we really prioritize giving back to the communities in which we operate. And it's important to us sort of from the employee perspective and the member perspective, just that they all feel like they're part of something bigger, and that, what they care about, we as a company care about. So we're not a company that's raised a lot of money. We're not venture funded. We struggled during the pandemic, just like many small businesses across the country. And because of that, in Q4 of 2021, we thought it was important to give back to companies that were hit hardest by the pandemic. So we created the small business grant and opened it up to just minority owned companies, Massachusetts-based businesses. And we had over 150, I think, the most awe-inspiring companies apply for this small business grant. And I was a judge so I read through all of these applications, and we had a great panel of judges help us picking a winner. And the company that won is this company called Unity Circles, that it's a nonprofit, and it trains young people to be active participants in, I hope I get this right, in healing and transforming their communities. And it's so great because not only did they get sort of a monetary prize, but they also get a free co-working membership with Workbar, so their team can come in and use our space. And the founder recently told our marketing director that the funds and the space will provide them with the time, the energy, and the resources to expand their efforts in a more sustainable way and in a more productive way. So that's something that's close to my heart. It's close to a lot of the hearts of the people that not only work for Workbar, but are our members. And so it was great. And it's something that we plan to do every year. And hopefully over time, as Workbar grows and sort of gets out of this pandemic, we can increase the value of it as well.
So it's almost like an incubator.
In that case, it is.
Yeah.
In that case, it really is. So, so it's been really great. It's been a really great.
Well, that is great.
Process for us, yeah.
And I love to hear stories like that because I love to hear, the small entrepreneurs getting that little boost they might need to be able to grow their small business into something better or bigger.
Yeah. And I mean, I wish we were venture backed at some point, because I'd love to just give them all the money to come in and use Workbar space, and it was humbling. They are very awe-inspiring companies that applied.
Well, that could happen someday. You don't
Someday,
Rick. So now let's talk about how these companies that during this pandemic, especially. They told all their employees work from home, and then everything started to get a little better, and everyone was starting to move back. And then all of a sudden we have this Omicron virus comes in, and now everyone's getting sick again. So everyone goes in their offices and go back home. And I think some companies are saying, just stay home. We're not going to bring anyone back. So do you think this is going to be, Workbar will be beneficial in those situations? But do you think companies are going to bring back
do I think they are? I think they're going to try to. Do I think they should? No. The focus shouldn't be on return to office dates and timelines. And, the companies out there today that are getting it right are the ones that are empowering their teams to find ways now to safely and productive come together to connect. And, from the bigger picture perspective, work to me isn't somewhere I go. It's really something that I do. And again, if I can have a better quality of life by not commuting into an office, especially if it's to sit by myself at a desk all day, why wouldn't I do that? The average commuting time is 30 minutes a day, I think, or 30 minutes each way. So almost an hour a day that we can give people back whether that's 2 to 3 times a week, no matter how many times a week it is, it's impactful, and it's impactful to the workers. So I think that this really, this is an opportunity for companies and owners to rethink the purpose of the office. I think that there's definitely a need for the office. I'm not one of those people who thinks that we should all move to sort of far off places and never see each other again and never come into an office again. I think that there's a need for it. I think there's a need for it 1 or 2 days a week. And then the other days they work from home, they work from a third place like a Workbar. But either way, I think that, the need for the office should be more purpose driven. And I think that companies actually have to sit down at this point and think about what the role of the office is and where it adds value. And then sort of on the flip side, owners of these, real estate assets need to think about their approach and how they can back into that equation. So I think that sort of overall, it's a different way of thinking that really needs to happen to a very traditional asset class.
Well, that would be great. But, when you go and you look at the skyline in Boston.
Yeah.
And you see all these enormous skyscrapers that are strictly office buildings.
They are.
Which probably have thousands of people that work in there.
Yeah.
If everyone stayed home,
right.
what would happen to those? That's.
I know.
I don't know. You can't have that situation go on unless there's a repurpose for those buildings.
Well, I think that there's a different approach that we can all take to the asset class. I don't think companies are going to take as much space anymore. I definitely think there'll be more companies and they'll be taking less amount of space. So, and some of these large office buildings over the next few decades, they absolutely will be repurposed. And there will be a different approach to it, but certainly not all of them.
No, right. But like I was talking to you before we started the show, and I did a show on New York yesterday, and New York had a major problem once this pandemic happened because people were escaping the city in groves. They were just fleeing the whole city. So you had so many empty buildings, and no one was going into the offices. But one of the things that they came up with is that some of those office buildings, they can repurpose part of them for multifamily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we'll see a shift from commercial to residential, within that asset class. I think that that's something that is certainly going to be a trend in the future. Times are changing. CEOs are not interested in signing 10-year lease terms when the average company life cycle is 7 years and getting shorter every single year. They can hire top talent on a fractional basis. And the next Generation Z that's rising into the workforce, they've never stepped foot in an office. So I think that, just because the buildings are there doesn't mean that they're going to be filled with the same type of lease terms and the same type of companies that have been filling them for years. I think everybody's sort of, pausing and taking a different approach to what their real estate needs are. Just this week alone, I've had conversations about buying land in the metaverse. I mean, times are definitely changing, and, Workbar is still out there in the market looking to take on more real estate. We're continuing our greater Boston expansion. We plan to open up 2 to 3 new locations in this year alone. It's not in the city though. We're going to continue our suburban expansion. And, I think from not to interrupt you, I just think that from a sort of looking at different approaches, I don't think there's a traditional real estate company in the world today that's not looking, for example, at how to incorporate co-working into their portfolio. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, that was probably not the case.
Well, I mean, it's a great idea to be able to have those satellite offices in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the employees don't want to have to drive into the city because of, the traffic situation or just family related things. But companies do want to be able to have that Boston address.
Mhm.
It's like having a New York City address or a Boston address.
There's certainly
important.
value in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's absolutely value in that. In Cambridge and,
Right.
a lot of those places. So yeah, absolutely. And there are still
So,
major talent pools. Especially we're very lucky here in Massachusetts with all the universities and higher ed options here. I mean, there are certain talent pools here that aren't going anywhere.
right. So that being said, what's the next phase for Workbar? And what does the
Yeah.
co-working industry see going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, Workbar specifically, we're going to continue our expansion and blanket this region with more co-working spaces. Again, out in the suburban market mainly. And I think, for co-working in general, I think that, what we're seeing and what I think will just continue over the next few years is traditional real estate companies looking at co-working companies as strategic partners that can add a significant value to their assets, whether that's through, activation of the asset, whether that's through leasing velocity, whether that's through tenant retention. A co-working company isn't just a passive tenant in these buildings. We go into them as partners. And in the buildings that we've operated in, you brought up before, we've incubated tenants that we've then passed on to the landlord as, a tenant in the market that signed 20,000 square foot leases. We've generated leads through our marketing channels that are more suited for a traditional lease than for a Workbar lease. So we've passed those on to our landlord partners. And then, we support the existing tenant base with hybrid solutions, with, this high-end amenity space. Tenants use our meeting rooms, which we talked about. They use our event space. And I think over the next few years, we'll see acceptance from, the capital markets, from the lending companies. They'll catch up. They'll figure out how to include our product in their valuation models. And I think that that's just a matter of time. And I think that, in the meantime, what we're going to see in terms of trends is real estate companies looking at co-working operators, evaluating their brands, making sure that the brands have an emphasis on the end user experience, and partnering up and trying to figure out how to best serve the consumers out there in the market, which are the tenants and which are the employees, to the best of their ability. And I always like to say that if co-working was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I think a lot of people have gotten into the market and have quickly gotten out of the market because it's not easy. And I think that we'll see a lot more partnering up between larger landlords and co-working operators in the future, because I think there's a lot of value adds on both sides of it.
Well, you bring up a good point because, like retail's
Yeah.
struggling for all this time. And all of a sudden, the healthcare industry had gotten into, we can open up our quick urgent care locations in there. We can do some lab conversion, things like that with the retail space. So that, the people in the industry, they kind of, they have this ingenuity to evolve into something else, which
100%.
maybe Workbar is the solution to office space at this point.
Not maybe, Rick. Workbar is the solution.
Okay, so it is the solution. We just came up with the solution for it. Okay,
we solved all the world's problems on this podcast for one of the largest asset classes in the world. We solved their problem, and the solution is Workbar. But no, in all honesty, I think that retail is really interesting and evolving, and it's evolving every single day. The nice part about retail is everybody in a community knows where the retail is. They know where the Barnes and Noble is. They know where the CVS is. They know where all that stuff is. So I think incorporating, and maybe repositioning assets into places where people can hop in and out of work, I think that is super attractive. And I think that that's a trend that we'll definitely see in the future as well.
Well, and at this time, since this pandemic, I think it's well needed, because, people do need to go to, a workspace
Hmm.
You know, like I said, whether they have kids or they have any kind of
Yeah.
distractions at home, they need a place that they can go and get away from that for a
Hmm.
short time. Yes, certain things you can work from home with, and then, you know, certain
Yeah.
days, you say 40 hours a month, you know, it could be 40, it could be 60, it could be 30, you know, it all depends on the
Absolutely.
type of person it is.
And everyone is different. And I think that that's what's important. I just, what I don't see happening again is that 40-hour work week, that's really based off of sort of 19th century factory workers going into an office 9 to 5. Unless there's a purpose to do that, I don't see us going back to that direction. I think days are more nuanced, and it's more, you can have a happy, healthier, and more productive employee if they have a choice on where and when they work.
I also said, I had read something, and I don't remember where, that
Mhm.
people that were working from home have become more productive in their
I
work.
mean, I don't, right. And I think that that's something that data that came out of the pandemic, but I think there are sort of macro trends that probably attributed to that. Like they had nothing else to do because we were in a pandemic. So, and I mean, I think there are a couple of different, factors that go into that. I don't think that we want to have people be as productive at home as they can be in the office. And I think that people miss connecting with one another. But again, I think that there are different tools and different solutions to enable people to connect with one another and to have that sense of community and culture that's not going into an office from 9 to 5 every day. But I'm not one of those people that says that people can work at home just as productively just from the data that's come out of the pandemic, because I think there are too many other factors that went into that.
Well, because I can tell you from my own personal experiences that, instead of it being a 9 to 5 job,
Hmm.
it's like 24 hours a day. But
It's true.
you don't have to work the 24 hours a day. You could be out shopping. You could be with your
Yeah.
kids at a playground, or, but
Right.
you're
Right.
still available, but you're not really putting in that 9 to 5.
Heads down mentality.
You sort of
Right.
have your own time,
Right.
which is nice.
But that can certainly, yes, which I agree with. And I think it has to be a little bit more structured. And I think that people, if you're available 24/7, even if you're not working, I think that there's a burnout period there. And I think there does need to be some separation between home life and work life, just for the well-being of the employees. I think that that's important.
Well, yeah, but the beautiful part about it is that you can turn off your computer at any time, and you can turn off your phone at any time. So
But do you, Rick, is the question. Like, do the people out there do that? I don't know.
someone called me at 10 o'clock at night, two nights ago, a client, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't answer. So yes, I
Really
can.
good. I'm glad. I don't answer either. I think what we have to look at though is is the younger generation, and I think that they would answer, and I don't think that that's great for their mental health.
Well, young generation's a little different because they live and breathe their telephone.
They do.
They can't put
That
it
is their
down for
device.
5 seconds,
Right,
which
right.
is, I don't know
Which
if
is not
that's
good.
not a
Yeah,
good thing.
which is not good.
I don't know how
I
they're
don't
going to
think it's a good
socialize
thing.
in the future.
I know. I read somewhere that, Generation Z values their online friendships as much as their like in-person physical friendships. So their online friends are just as important as the people that are hanging out right next to them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So Sarah, how would someone get a hold of you to find out more information about Workbar?
Thank you, Rick. Yeah. So I mean, workbar.com is a great resource. And then I am very easily accessible. I can be emailed at sarah.travers@workbar.com. I can be called, I can be emailed. All my contact information is on our website. And I would love to hear from anybody who has an opinion, who has a need, who just wants to talk about co-working.
Well, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Rick.
well, you're very welcome. Great to talk with you. We were talking with Sarah Travers, the CEO at Workbar. I'm Rick Kaplan, and until next time.